Now, continuing with our demo, if we go to our Sharepoint website and log in as the central admin, and then have a look at the collections that are available to us, then we go to the web application container, contains the website, our demo website. Then this is a web collection, that a site collection that we've made for collaboration, say for example pre-sales engineers across Europe. Now this is managed by a user called Alan.Bucket. So I'm going to log in as Alan. Just trying to log me back into the central admin. If I go to the pre-sales site, then what you see is that already SharePoint is proposing the APS trusted identity provider as an alternative source of identities for SharePoint. This is because it's been, I set it up that way, and there's a trust relationship has been established. So it's then redirected to the Quest APS product for authentication. So Alan can log in here, and he's a manager, so he's got full access. So let's have a look around at this site collection. It's pre-sales, it's a team site, we have libraries of documents, we can have discussions, it's all good collaboration stuff. You can see there's a sub-site as well for managers to collaborate, and we'll make use of that in our authorization examples. So let's go back up to the pre-sales site, and as security people we're interested in the permissions that are available on it. Now if we have a look at it, when you create a site in SharePoint, it typically makes a set of groups to reflect pretty much read, modify and full control sort of access to the site. So anybody who's a member of these groups will have that appropriate permission. People who are not in these groups simply won't be able to log into the site at all. So let's go in, and suppose we wanted to add another owner for this site collection. What would that look like? If you pull up the people picker, simply do a search to have a look at the users that are coming back, the identities that are being proposed. And you can see that also from not just at authentication time, but here we are in the process of administering SharePoint, then the claims provider from APS is furnishing these identities here, so that we could choose one to be used as part of the native SharePoint authorization mechanisms. Now equally, that was a list of users we saw there, but we're also furnishing as claims application roles, so we could also furnish a role. Now what's significant about that is that those roles and users are coming from systems out with SharePoint. They're not known to SharePoint, they're not even known to Active Directory. They could be arbitrary systems, they could be on the cloud. In this case they're just coming from an enterprise directory we've modeled in a BitQ directory. But this is a really significant step, because what it means is that SharePoint gets on with its job of managing content and collaboration, whilst leaving the identity management aspects to other systems which are more appropriately set up for that, or indeed are authoritative for that information. So that's the set of permissions that we've got here. So let's start to log in as some of those users that we've seen to have a look at what the different views look like. So if I log in using the APS environment as a regular user like Paul Walker, go back to the pre-sales site, you can see straight away that Paul's a regular pre-sales consultant, so he has not got access to the manager site. Otherwise, he's got full access to the site. He can contribute, upload documents, download documents, and so on. If we log in as a user like Patrick, who's Paul's manager, now he's a regular user. He's not an administrator. He doesn't have that full list that Alan Bucket's got. However, he does have access to the manager's website because he's a manager. And the fact that he's a manager is information that has been pulled from, again, systems out with SharePoint. SharePoint is not authoritative for HR information of that nature, so it relies on somebody else for that information. Another aspect to the authorization enhancement to SharePoint that APS for SharePoint offers is around the management of libraries. So we have a library configured, not in the Managers Only site. Actually, I need to go back up to the pre-sale site. Still logged in as a manager, Patrick Hunter. But if I go to the library that's available to the pre-sales, just pre-sale secured documents, you can see that Patrick's got access to documents that are labeled according to metadata as private or public. If I go one step up in the hierarchy, log in as his manager, who happens to be Neil, then Neil can see can also see private and public documents, but he can additionally see confidential documents. So that's a good example of how we've come to enhance authorization around metadata, making a link between metadata stored in SharePoint with dynamic group membership in other systems. Now, that's fine, that's the current situation, but how does this all behave in the face of user lifecycle changes? Well, one thing we can do is, as an example of user lifecycle, we can promote a user. So let's go into our directory, and again, we need to imagine this could be HR system, or it could be Talio HR system on the cloud, something like this. We go there, and we should make Paul a manager. Okay. Well, when Paul logs in again to the system, then without SharePoint having to do anything, Paul straight away has access to both private and public documents, and he's also now got access to the manager website for collaboration. So that's great. So that's an example of how SharePoint has done nothing, yet it's managed to leverage user lifecycle information. Now, another aspect of the lifecycle is that it could well be the policy that would change rather than the user profile. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back as Alan, use this other browser, go back as Alan. I'm going to update the, I'm going to log in as Alan. And yes, I'm going to go to the pre-sale secure documents library, and then update the library settings, information management, policy settings for documents. It's going to go down and say, well, we really need to change this policy. We discovered there are documents out there labeled as private, managers have access to, and it's not appropriate. So what we're going to do is we're simply going to get rid of that that rule. Yes. Okay. So that rule has been removed, and again, that rule will be effective immediately within SharePoint. So if we go back to the pre-sales website and go into the secure document libraries, and Paul no longer has access to those private documents. He's the manager. But we've changed the policy to say managers can no longer see private documents. So again, straight away, as a result of that policy, which has been enhanced by APS for SharePoint, it's not out of the box at SharePoint. We've managed to in one policy configuration change affect all these documents across the SharePoint system. So that's a pretty powerful enhancement to SharePoint. That pretty much completes the demo within SharePoint of the authorizations and so on. So just to recap, we've seen authentication to SharePoint using identity providers out, other than ASP.NET and Active Directory. Basically, any system that is able to be consumed by APS, which is essentially pretty much any system, can be consumed, and then APS can turn that into an appropriate token for SharePoint. APS claims providers, we saw it particularly in the people picker for choosing users and groups. and we saw the information management policy enhancement relating metadata to externalized roles. Again, just a final word on the notion of externalizing security policy. It's just something that I think we can see as something of an architectural direction in the industry. We did it successfully. We have been doing it successfully with identities for some time in terms of externalizing those to LDAP directories. And I think what we're seeing now is that increasing even more, those identities being externalized even further away from the enterprise out onto the cloud. And not only that, but policies themselves, authorization decisions being externalized, assisted by various standards in this domain. So that completes the demo. Just a recap on what we've done. The various elements of that, STS and so on. It's really worth pointing out that whilst APS for SharePoint is a very good specific set of enhancements to a specific platform, it's also a strategic choice in the sense that it's also complemented by other Quest 1 solutions, which I've listed here, solutions like Quest 1 Identity Manager, the Data Governance Edition, which has a lot of innovative technology around enhancing governance and insight into who has access to what resources in SharePoint systems. And then Quick Connect and other pieces of technology. So the Quest 1 stack is really quite complete in terms of security and identity management as a customer would move on from having deployed APS for SharePoint into considering other aspects of their identity management problems. So it remains thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the presentation.